Hey everybody, it's You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions, and this week's first question comes to me from Piker Eyes, and it's a wrestling question because I know you non-wrestling fans who watch my shit just love the wrestling questions. It goes like this. Hey Steve, I have a few Undertaker questions for you. If Taker had to lose at WrestleMania, which of the current superstars would you want to be the one to dethrone the Phenom? And which superstar do you think could benefit from the title Streak Killer the most? Also, what are your thoughts on the always rumored Sting versus Taker at Mania match? Do you think it could live up to the hype in fans' heads? I'm in the camp that thinks that The Undertaker just should never lose at WrestleMania. I feel like it's gone on so long that if they do finally have him lose to somebody at Mania, that the streak has been so lengthy and historic, and it's been pushed to such legendary proportions that no matter who ended it, under what circumstances, it would be an anticlimax. And it's just better just to let the guy retire undefeated at WrestleMania and just leave it at that. But if they were going to book somebody to beat him at WrestleMania, I'm not sure who it would be. I mean, maybe Daniel Bryan, maybe CM Punk. I think whoever it is should be a babyface. I don't think they should waste the streak ending on getting a heel over. So I don't think it should be Brock Lesnar. I don't think that it should be, I can remember either last year or the year before they were talking about Wade Barrett wrestling Taker at Mania. And I don't think they were talking about having him beat the streak. But they were talking about Wade Barrett, and which goes to show you just how schizophrenic their booking has been for the last few years. To imagine that they would have considered Wade Barrett for a spot against The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and then think of how horribly he's been used this last year or so. I think it should be a babyface. I think it should be a guy that they're either right on the cusp of making or want to bring up to that level, and I think it should be a competitive match, and he should go over clean. I mean, if I had to pick somebody, I would go Daniel Bryan, just because I don't think you can push that guy hard enough, and I'm a little irritated at the moment at how terribly he's been used over the last week, with the end of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and then the way he was booked on Monday night. But if in my perfect wrestling world, The Undertaker just doesn't lose, because there's really no way to get as much out of that as you might want to get out of it. And as for the Sting Taker match, if it's ever possible for it to happen, they should totally do it, just from a pure promotional standpoint. The match itself probably won't be very good, because I think Taker is almost perpetually injured at this point. He's just tired and old and beat up, and he's close to the end of the road. And Sting is in a similar situation. So I don't think that the match itself would be that great. It certainly wouldn't live up to the hype and to the expectations that fans have. But if the opportunity arises to do the match, they should absolutely do it. Faisal Rajan, Steve, what is your take on the multiverse theories? I am not sure if someone has asked you this before, but it seems to me like classic theology. A lot of scientists do treat it as a possible hypothesis, but I feel like a lot of them make it sound factual. My background is not in physics or math, but the explanations seem too in the air. Thoughts? P.S. I am open to thoughts from other people on the thread too. Cheers. Well, my background, of course, is not in physics or mathematics either. It's kind of funny to be thinking about these sorts of huge scientific questions from where I sit as an English major with sort of an interest in popular science. Like, I have absolutely no expertise to apply to this question at all. Having said that, the impression that I get, and again, completely uninformed opinion, I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about, but the impression I get from hearing people talk about the multiverse is that I just can't get over seeing it as a free lunch. And one of the things I have learned from science classes and from physics is that, at least as far as we can tell, it doesn't seem like there's any such thing as a free lunch. Nothing happens. There's no such thing as infinite energy. There's no such thing as infinite matter. And if we accept that a multiverse exists, again, unless I'm just not getting it, we're talking about an infinite number, or at least, if not an actually infinite number, an unlimited number of separate universes going on at the same time. Where's all that stuff coming from? Where's all that matter and energy coming from that we can even have? That there's enough stuff to have all these different universes existing simultaneously, parallel to one another. I'm sure that the very serious parallel universe, multiverse theorists who consider it a realistic possibility have some explanation for that. But I can't think of it right now, and I don't know if I would understand it if I had it explained to me. Garuda Gal 23, do you think that Dominionism, sometimes linked with Reconstructionism, is a real threat to the USA, our government, or anything at all? I don't know if it's a real threat, or at least if it's an urgent threat at the moment. I think sometimes when people talk about the threat of Dominionism, or the threat of these various interest groups that have overtly religious goals related to government, that want to establish a Christian state, or as Dominionists say, they feel that they've been called by God to serve in government and to sort of rule in a Christian way. I mean, I think it's very easy to be hyperbolic and hysterical about that sort of thing and to overstate the actual threat, because I don't know how many people actually believe that, or at least believe it strongly enough that they're willing to act on it. So, but at the same time, having said that, I think that it's worth responding to when you encounter it. I mean, I think if a politician starts expressing dominionist ideals, or speaks before a dominionist group and share and offers them sympathy, or seems to have a compatible viewpoint with them, I think it's worth answering, because I think the dominionist viewpoint, any viewpoint that holds that it is the goal or the role of a particular religious group to have a special place in an elected democratic government above other groups, that runs completely contrary to the American ideal, or not even the American ideal, but the democratic ideal, the Republican ideal, the idea that the government should be limited and empowered by the will of the people and the consent of the people, and that no one particular group of people shall have more of an influence or more of an important role in the government than any other, especially when you're talking in terms of religion. I mean, our United States Constitution and over 200 years of judicial interpretation of it clearly tells us that the church and the state must remain separate. So if you're a dominionist, you have a philosophy that runs directly contrary to the spirit of the United States government and the philosophy on which that government is built and based. And it's something worth responding to, even if the actual threat posed by people who hold that philosophy may not be as urgent as it might be. Nathan Young, hey Steve, I am 19 years old and have not yet had a girlfriend or close relationship like that. I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure whether to view it as a serious problem that I should have had some kind of relationship by now. What are your thoughts? Do you have any advice? Thanks. Well, I'll tell you this, Nathan. I did not lose my virginity until 2 days after my 20th birthday. I don't know if that's a comfort to you. I don't know if that makes you feel any better, but that's the truth. High school for me, in terms of romance and relationships with girls, was a complete wasteland. It was a series of rejections and of just not a very productive time in my life in terms of romance. I never had a really serious girlfriend. I don't think I ever went out on a date. And like I say, I didn't lose my virginity until I was 2 days past my 20th birthday. Does that mean that I'm not normal? Does that mean that I was stunted somehow? Should I have had a girlfriend before then? I don't know. I've never been examined by a psychologist. I don't know what my history as far as that goes means when compared to the typical experience of an American teenager. I don't know. I don't feel that unusual. I don't feel weird or abnormal. I don't really, looking back now, having had the experiences I've had, I don't really regret any of it. I don't really wish that I could change anything. I mean, I feel like things have turned out okay. I mean, I'm married. I have a normal, healthy, happy relationship with a woman now who loves me and I love her. And I don't think that that is affected by the fact that I didn't get laid until I was 2 years out of high school. So, I mean, all I can tell you is, in terms of romance and having a serious relationship with someone, you can't force it, you know. You can't make it happen. You can't wake up one morning and go, hey, wait a minute, I'm 19 years old. I haven't had a serious girlfriend yet. I need to fix that. It doesn't work that way. You know, it happens when it happens. And the real thing, the real stuff, when you finally find someone, and it might be the first of many someones, but when you finally find someone who you can relate to and who cares about you and who is attracted to you the same way you're attracted to them, you can't make that happen. You can help it out. You can interact with people. You can meet people. You can make yourself available. You can be bold in approaching people who you might like, but you can't force it. And when people try to force things like that, that's how they run into trouble. And that's, in some cases, that's how they turn into assholes, because they try to force things that you can't really force. So, I mean, if you can decipher some advice out of that, that's really all I can tell you. Your experience is not that different from mine, from the sound of it. Dr. Themo, I was reading an article concerning the MRA on the Raw Story website, and in it the author claims that at least the majority of the people who associate themselves with that movement don't actually care about the short list of grievances usually brought up by the MRA. What do you think? I haven't looked into it, so I don't actually know for a fact, but I would not be at all surprised if that were true. I mean, just judging by the way MRAs and just more general manosphere types behave in the comments on my videos, for instance, or comments on blog posts that I've read by other people that take them to task or challenge them or mock them, what have you. They really don't seem like serious people. I mean, sometimes I think when they bring up issues like child custody or alimony or male victims of domestic violence, things that are legitimate issues that could use some addressing, that where there may actually be a legitimate unfair prejudice against men and for women. If they really cared about those issues, I think they would conduct themselves as more serious people. And I think they bring those issues up just as a way of justifying their position and of justifying their behavior and of justifying their negative, sexist, often frankly misogynistic attitudes toward women, and their demonizing of feminism and their blaming of feminism and feminists and feminist activism for their problems and their personal shortcomings, and the fact that their lives have been so frustrating or so negative relating to women. I would not be surprised at all if that were in fact the case, that most of the people who identify as MRA don't actually really care about those serious issues that the movement says it's concerned about. I think a lot of it is probably just aggrieved pricks who want to find a place in the company of other aggrieved pricks to bitch about their ex-wives or their ex-girlfriends or the girls who wouldn't go out with them. McFly88, Steve, are you a mama's boy? I ask because something I've been analyzing myself on which spawned when I was watching Fight Club. We're a generation of men raised by women is my creativity. Psychological studies that have shown that men raised by their mothers and without strong male figures, mentors, tend to be develop more of a creative mind and enjoy things like literature, movies, writing, cartoons, comics, etc. Maybe they got something there. I fall into this category. Do you? I don't think I would call myself a mama's boy. I don't think I was one when I was a kid, and I certainly don't think I'm one now. And I was close to my mother, and I credit my mother. I would agree with you as far as the creativity thing, at least in my case. I do credit my mother with encouraging my creativity and encouraging my interest in things like science and art and things like that. But I wasn't without strong male role models. My father and my paternal grandfather were both very strong male role models, and both had a very large, noticeable influence on my life. I mean, if you knew my dad and you knew my dad's dad, and you also knew me, I think you would be able to see very clearly their influence on me, both in terms of my character and in terms of my behavior and the way I talk. And there are also things about me that you would never associate with them, and I'm kind of glad about that in certain cases. But yeah, they were both very strong role models, male role models to me. So I can't say that I fall into that category exactly, but it was certainly my mother who nourished my creativity when I was young. Beth Ann Swan, run through your typical production week. My typical production week, Monday I compile and write and shoot, and now the good news, which goes up on Tuesday. Tuesday, if I'm in the part of the year where I'm doing an atheist reads, Tuesday would be the day when I read or finish reading the chapter that I'm doing that week and then write that video. And if I'm not doing an atheist reads, then I would write and probably try to shoot the stuffy video that I want to put up that week. Wednesday, I shoot. If I have more shooting to do for like the An Atheist Read series, I would shoot it on Wednesday. If I'm doing stuffy videos, I would either finish the shooting for the stuffy video or edit the stuffy video. And I also shoot these videos. You had to ask. I shoot those on Wednesday. Thursday is another writing day. I'm usually trying to write ahead with 5 Stupid Things, or if I'm sufficiently caught up on that, then I write the next stuffy video if that's the time of year that I'm doing that. And then Friday is another shooting day. Friday I shoot, one week I shoot riffing on mail call for the following Monday, and then another week I'll shoot 5 Stupid Things for the following Monday. And if it's a week where I'm doing 5 Stupid Things, I do 3 5 Stupid Things videos at a time. I do the current events version for the following Monday, and then I also do 2 of the 5 Stupid Things about videos and edit those and get those ready to post in the coming weeks. So, and then Saturday and Sunday, usually unless I have to catch up on something that I fell behind on during the week, Saturday and Sunday, I'm off and I don't do anything with the YouTube channel except maybe reply to comments here and there. So that is, generally speaking, my typical production week. One of the highlights of any production week, of course, would be when I hear that thunderclap, because it means that it's time for
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
Tony Reed, hey Steve, has there ever been a match between 2 wrestlers you didn't like that turned out to be one of the best matches you've ever seen? If so, did that match change your view of either of those wrestlers? I personally had never liked The Rock nor Hulk Hogan, but I believe their match together was one of the best, if not the best, matches of all time. After that, I didn't mind them so much. I've never had that particular experience. I've had matches between guys that I wasn't crazy about that turned out to be better than I expected, but I never have had a match between 2 guys that I positively didn't like that turned out to be a great match. I remember, I think it was probably in the year 2000. Goldberg had a match with Scott Steiner, and by that time in Steiner's career, he was just, a muscle guy. He wasn't that great of a worker, and Goldberg was never that great of a worker. But they had a pretty good match together. I wouldn't call it one of the best matches I've ever seen, but it was definitely a lot better than I would have expected it to be. Shoes on Hands. Your first couple absolutely pronunciations were perfect. Have you made a conscious effort to change the way you say absolutely? When I was reading that question, I absolutely did. DZOSU071. Hey Steve, what are your thoughts on Lady Gaga? My wife is obsessed with her at the moment, and I admit she does have a few good songs. I just can't get past the feeling that she is just a female version of Marilyn Manson. I think maybe 2 years ago or so, I actually made a video about my feelings on Lady Gaga. It's called Wrestling with Gaga. It's on my channel. And I still, to this day, I just don't get it. I admire her for her activism. I admire her for her very pro-gay stance. But the music, I just don't get. I just don't think the music is that great. And I think the act, like the weird sort of outfits and outlandish costumes and behavior, I'm not very taken by it. I don't get it. Cinema Nerd 14, who are some actors you feel should get more recognition? Keep up the good work and thanks. Well, the one actor that comes to mind in terms of under-recognized great actors is Bruce Greenwood. And he's had some more exposure lately. He's been in some blockbuster movies here and there, and he was Captain Pike in the new Star Trek movies. But man, he to me is one of the great actors of his generation. I think he is absolutely outstanding and very under-recognized. He's a good-looking guy. He's a great actor. He should be like a huge movie star instead of just a guy who pops up in things every now and then. And I go, ooh, Bruce Greenwood. Should be a fucking movie star. Texas is Pangea Greg. Would you call the ability to move your hand, an object, with your mind telekinesis? No, Greg, I would not. Isaac Barlow. Yo, Steve, I was wondering, in your opinion, why haven't Yes and Kiss been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I'm a huge fan of Yes and their music, and it seems a shame to have them not be included with the great names that are already in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Thanks again for the wonderful videos. I'm not a huge fan of Yes. I'm an even smaller fan of Kiss. I just don't like either group very much. But it is strange that they're not in the Hall of Fame yet. I mean, I guess the excuse is, especially with a band like Kiss, which is, glam rock and very theatrical, I guess the excuse is that it's beneath the dignity of the hall, or they're just not serious enough, or just not good enough to be in the Hall of Fame. But really, didn't they cross that bridge when they put the Bee Gees in, if not before? Cranky Smurf. Steve, what do you think of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. so far? I would say that it is solid but unspectacular so far. A show that I like to watch, but not a show that I would cry if I missed. Sepia Siren. Okay, my latest question. Do you like Tim Minchin, the Pope song in particular? Oh, yes. Yes, I love Tim Minchin, and the Pope song is one of my very favorite Tim Minchin songs. Is there a greater line, a greater lyric that you can think of than fuck the motherfucker, fuck the motherfucker, fuck the motherfucker, he's a fucking motherfucker. It's my favorite word, and it's used over and over again very cleverly, very effectively in the Pope song. And even the new Pope, who seems like a much nicer guy than the old Pope. Fuck the Pope. Fuck the idea of a Pope. Kiovar, hey Steve, do you think that scriptural literalism is technically a form of idolatry, since it basically takes something that's supposedly ineffable, their God, and codifies it into a tangible form? Yeah, that's a really good point. I've never heard it put quite that way, but I think you could consider it idolatry. When I read your question the first time, it reminded me of the time that Aaron Ra was on the radio show, or the podcast, I guess, with Cy Ten Bruggencate, and he said to Cy, you don't worship a god, you worship a book. I think that's another very good way of putting it. Blood Toker, what brand and flavor of toothpaste do you prefer? It's Crest Pro Health, and it's mint something or other. So that's the brand of toothpaste that I prefer. And I prefer it because Crest is basically the kind of toothpaste that I used when I was a kid, and I just never felt like changing. So there you go. Well, that's it for the questions. Before I get out of here, though, as always, I want to do a shout out. And the shout out this week goes to a very deserving YouTuber by the name of King Crocoduck. He has a few thousand subs, and some of you may be familiar with King Crocoduck already. If not, by God, you should be. Because he has a great channel, really good atheist content, really good scientific content, some videos that respond to Eric Hovind, some videos that respond to Ray Comfort, basically poking the clowns of evangelical Christianity and creationism in the eyes, which is something that I very rarely get tired of. And he put up a video a few days ago that is hilarious. It's called Symphony of Psychos, and it is just a series of clips of Christian evangelists and personalities just saying utterly insane things, all set to the beautiful music of the Overture to Marriage of Figaro. It's a really funny video. So check out King Crocoduck if you have not checked out King Crocoduck up to this point. Very much worth your time. That is it for this week, everybody. I will be back next week to do this all over again, provided, of course, that you ask me some questions that I can answer, because for me to answer, you have to ask. So please leave a comment on this video. Ask me anything about anything for next time. No subject is too silly, no subject is too serious. I will answer as many of them as I possibly can. So until next time, have a good week. Take care. I'll see you then.